In this video, we're going to unbox this Sony A1 Bravia OLED television and go through its user menu to see if there are any picture settings that we can adjust to optimize the picture quality of this OLED television. Coming right up. So this is just the counterbalance to keep it stable.
It's about 10 kilograms.
10 kilograms?
Yeah.
So this contributes a lot to the weight.
This piece unlocks.
Okay.
So you need to push that and then it clicks back. And then we hold the TV by the actuators.
Right, the Sony A1, also marketed as the A1E in the USA, is now unboxed and sitting nicely in our test room. Let's go through the picture settings in the user menu and see what sort of changes there are specific to OLED. Brightness is equivalent to the OLED light control on LG OLEDs. It determines the light output from the display. On the Sony A1, it defaults to max across all picture modes, whereas on the company's 2016 and 2017 LED LCDs, such as the Sony XE93 or Sony ZD9, the default value is usually 40. Sony engineers probably felt that OLED needed that extra brightness boost. Contrast lets you set the white level without affecting black level. Gamma dictates light output relative to the input signal. On Sony TVs, a gamma value of -2 is very close to 2.4. Gamma 0 is very close to 2.2. Black level lets you set the black floor. On most other brands, this is usually labeled as brightness. If you set black level too low, shadow detail will disappear, but if you set it too high, the blacks will turn gray and the picture will wash out. Black adjust is basically near black gamma manipulation, mostly sacrificing some shadow detail to give the illusion of deeper blacks. Advanced contrast enhancer is dynamic contrast stretching to give more pop to the image, but it can blow out shadow and highlight detail quite easily. It's not easy to preserve video accuracy with these settings enabled. Extended dynamic range is necessary to extract the highest peak brightness from the Sony A1 or A1E OLED. Let's move on to color. There are the two global color adjustment control of color and hue. Sony still hasn't bothered implementing an advanced color measurement system or CMS on the Sony A1 OLED. Advanced color temperature allows us to calibrate the grayscale. There are the 2-point white balance controls, namely red, green and blue gain, which affects the brighter portion of the image, and red, green and blue bias, which affects the darker portion. There is also a 10-point white balance control. Sony called it color gamma adjustment points, which you can use to calibrate the grayscale and to a lesser extent gamma at each 10% video stimulus interval. Note that the 10-point settings within a single color temperature preset is shared between different picture modes, even on different HDMI inputs. So if you have used Expert 1 for SDR, you have to use Expert 2 for HDR, Warm for game, and so on and so forth. Let's go into the clarity submenu. Sharpness and resolution apply edge enhancement. Using the wrong settings here can cause the image to look either too blurry or more likely too grainy or fizzy. Smoke gradation is a fantastic feature that's unique to Sony TVs for some reason. Even with it disabled, Sony Bravias in 2016 and 2017 already exhibit the least amount of posterization compared with competing TVs from other brands, but enabling smoke gradation can clean up the distinct steps and stripes of what should be smooth gradients you sometimes see in lower quality sources. Moving on to motion, see what I did there. Let's check out Motion Flow Custom, which allows us to adjust the smoothness and the clearness settings independently. Smoothness is basically frame interpolation. Clearness, on the other hand, is black frame insertion or BFI, whereas on Sony LED LCDs there are 5 levels of intensities besides off. On the Sony A1 or A1E OLED, there are only 2 levels available: low, which is off, and high, which is on. As you can hopefully see from the camera, switching on black frame insertion on the A1 OLED darkens the image and introduces visible flicker. This is how black frame insertion works. It inserts black frames in between the original frames to refresh our retinal persistence and reduce motion blur. We'll assess the pros and cons of setting clearness to high when we start reviewing the TV. Film mode applies film mode interlacing and perhaps even a dose of frame interpolation depending on the setting. Under the video options submenu, you can use HDR mode to force HDR on, HDMI video range to set the levels to either video 16:235 or PC 0:255, and color space to choose between different color gamuts. BT709 for high definition video content, DCI, Adobe RGB for photos, and BT2020 for Ultra HD Blu-ray signaling. Most users should just leave all these settings at auto because the Sony A1 will automatically choose the correct values. There are a few other important settings you should know outside the picture menu. If we press the home button, which brings up the Android home screen, go into settings. If we go into external inputs, we need to set HDMI signal format from standard to enhanced to get the highest bandwidth from the HDMI port, but only on HDMI port 2 and 3. I'll show you some examples together with an Oppo 203 4K Blu-ray player. First, I'm playing a 4K Blu-ray of Sully with resolution set to auto on the Oppo player. Like most Ultra HD Blu-rays, this disc is encoded at 10-bit 420 at 24 frames per second, and is, in my opinion, one of the top 2 best-looking 4K Blu-ray titles I've seen so far. The Oppo 203 is connected to HDMI 4 on the Sony A1. You can see that the disc plays, HDR still kicks in. You can see the HDR logo here. But you can see from the information screen from the Oppo, if we long press the info button, that the chroma depth tops out at 12-bit 422. This is generally not a problem since Sony TVs usually do a very good job of converting 422 to 444 or RGB. Now let's take the HDMI cable and connect it to HDMI 3. With HDMI signal format left at its default setting of standard, we can see that from Oppo's information screen that the chroma depth still tops out at 12-bit 422. But if we change HDMI signal format to enhanced, And then we'll need to stop and start the disk again. Press resume. Okay. And long press the information button on the Oppo remote. You can see that the Oppo is now outputting 12-bit 444, which is accepted and displayed correctly by the television. Now let's change the disk to Billy Lynn's long half-time walk, which is encoded in 10-bit 420, but at a higher frame rate or HFR of 60 Hz. With HDMI signal format set to enhance, you can see that the disk plays, and the Sony A1 presents a very nice picture with 12-bit 422 at 60 Hz. But if we switch the HDMI cable to HDMI 4, the Oppo will only output 8-bit 420 at 60 frames per second, which will be accepted and displayed by the television. So enhanced HDMI signal format is necessary for the highest bandwidth the television is capable of. Okay, one last thing. Let's go into the Android home screen again. Go into settings. Go into display. Picture contains the picture settings that I've just explained earlier. Screen lets you disable overscan. Expert panel settings. In the menu, you can use the panel refresh function to manually trigger a major OLED compensation cycle to clear up image retention and improve uniformity. This is similar to the clear panel noise or panel refresher function on LG OLEDs. The Sony A1 or A1E OLED will run its own compensation cycle in standby anyway after 4 hours of accumulated operation, so we advise against using panel refresh function unless it is absolutely necessary. Hope you didn't find my explanation too complicated or long-winded. You can always rewind and watch whichever parts you didn't understand. We'll be reviewing the Sony A1 over the next couple of weeks, and we'll have the opportunity to compare it against 2016 and 2017 OLED TVs from other brands, side by side from the same source. So if you have any questions about this TV or there's anything you want us to test, let us know in the comment section below. If you found this video useful, please click the like button and subscribe to the HDTV Test YouTube channel for more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you the next time.